Amanda, and then Danny. And then Martin. The grandmother didn't, my mom is in Washington right now seeing yes, all my brothers, but they're actually, but my brothers live up there. And my one brother had a stroke 2 years ago and lives in Washington, Oregon. He's in Portland. So my other brother is in Vancouver across the bridge. So he broke his neck a year ago.
This is Fred. And Neil.
All right. Thank you so much. It's not turning out to be. It was.
Oh.
It's still the.
I love my own.
He did until we moved. Yeah. When the house is husband, that's my niece. She's the one that inherited that.
How are you?
Is she coming?
You want 3 firefighters? Yeah, they could. There you go. Thank you. Your time.
Yeah, but with survey, that's where I was concerned. Correct, but there's surveys. Surveys. There's one of those inspections. That's fine. Because you asked me and I screwed the wrong place. I did it again, just once. That's all I get. Yeah, that's all I get now.
Yeah.
You know what?
You texted me?
Oh, all right. Coming to order a regular meeting of the City Council of Palos Verdes Estates this Monday, Tuesday, October 22nd at 6:30 p.m. Please rise and join me in the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you and welcome to everybody. Could we please have a roll call?
Councilmember McGowan,
Here.
Councilmember Camp.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Mosey. Here. And Mayor Murdock.
Here. Thank you. All right, approval of the agenda. I'm actually going to make a recommendation that we move the ceremonial presentations ahead of the mayor's report. So that I will make that motion and wanted to see if anybody else had any other changes they wanted to the agenda.
So both of the ceremony.
Both of the
Up front? Yeah,
ceremonies. Do I have a second then?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. With that, I'm gonna hand it over to Chief Kalina.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, good evening, City Council members, and good evening to the Palos Verdes Estates community. It's truly an honor for me to stand here before you tonight to recognize several people in our community, including our police officers and firefighters and a school nurse for something that happened about 6 months ago. So on Tuesday, April 30th of this year at 9:15 in the morning, we received a 911 call in our dispatch center from the staff at the Palos Verdes Intermediate School. Staff informed our dispatcher that a 14-year-old student, Joshua Jackson, was non-responsive and had difficulty breathing. Our dispatchers quickly sent police officers and transferred the call to the Los Angeles County Fire Department. Acting Sergeant Sean Crisfield and Officer Neil Sisson were the first to arrive on scene. When they did, they saw Nurse Rowley performing CPR on Joshua. Nurse Rowley also had an AED deployed and attached to Joshua and told the officers that they had already delivered one shock, but that he still needed CPR. Now, it was brought to my attention that Nurse Rowley, who is a registered nurse, was not even supposed to be at PBIS that day, which I think is miraculous. She splits her time between different schools, including elementary schools, and Tuesdays is not a day that she's at PBIS. But for some reason, she was there at PBIS, and this was a critical component in Joshua's in the response to help Joshua, as she was able to quickly recognize the need for CPR and to quickly deploy the AD and started EMS. Acting Sergeant Sean Crisfield and Officer Neil Sisson took over CPR while the paramedics were on their way. During that time, a second shock from the AED was delivered. Firefighter paramedics Frank Gutierrez, Derek Ho, and Alan Matsumoto arrived, and they started administering advanced life-saving efforts. While they were treating Joshua, our police officers started coordinating an emergency escort for him to the hospital. Now, while of course paramedics and the ambulance and of course the police have lights and sirens, and that enables us to respond to things quicker and transport patients quicker, it does take time at intersections where we need to slow down and ensure that we are not going to be involved in a traffic collision ourselves, especially when going through red lights. Having police officers clear the path and shut down traffic before the ambulance reaches an intersection is a very critical component. So our police officers coordinated this response, not just with our own staff, but with the Lomita Sheriff Station. And it was a really well communicated plan and route all the way to Harbor UCLA Medical Center, which of course is a further distance than a couple of our local hospitals, but this was a necessary requirement because they have a pediatric trauma unit. So another thing happened on Tuesday. We don't always have a motorcycle officer working. And that day, it so happened that Reserve Officer Fred Hatch, who was assigned to a police motorcycle, he was working. And what that does, especially for a police escort, is it enables him to use his motorcycle, which is a lot quicker than our cars and a lot more maneuverable, for him to get ahead of intersections and essentially leapfrog, so that when the paramedics pass him, he can get ahead of the paramedics again and shut down the next intersection. So that happened all the way to Harbor UCLA Medical Center. Joshua fought hard through, I'm sure, what felt like endless medical procedures and surgeries for him and his parents. And an email we received a couple months ago from his parents, they said, "Thanks to all the first responders and PBIS staff, Josh will actually begin his freshman year at PB High School." Joshua and his family are here with us tonight. It's a great honor for me, as well as our city council, to present these life-saving recognition certificates to Nurse Rowley, to Acting Sergeant Sean Crisfield, to Officer Neil Sisson, Firefighter Paramedic Derek Ho, Firefighter Paramedic Frank Gutierrez, and Firefighter Paramedic Alan Matsumoto. Thank you all for your dedicated service and life-saving actions. Joshua's dad, Lamar, would like to come up and say a few words.
As you can imagine, on April 30th, we received a call that was unimaginable. As a retired first responder, I know it's very difficult to see a child in distress. And I want to tell you all thank you from the bottom of our hearts, from Principal Farrell, calling my wife, and walking her and talking her through it all the way. She drove to the school, and you can imagine how difficult that was. My wife called me, and we spoke the entire way. And she's telling me about them performing CPR, and she's telling me about the traffic control all the way to the hospital to get Josh there as fast as possible. And then Josh was airlifted to Harbor UCLA. So all the first responders, thank you from the bottom of my heart. And for the rest of you, what you should know is with our schools, the PBIS staff is absolutely phenomenal. I can't tell you how much of an impact they've had on our lives. They really get to know their students. And I think that's a big reason Josh is here today. Mr. Kevin noticed after running in PE that Josh was in distress. He just could tell something was wrong and asked Josh to sit on the golf cart. And that's where Josh passed out. That him noticing that Josh was in distress is really, I think, what made the difference, because he was able to quickly get Josh to Nurse Riley, who had the AED. So it, like you said, it was like everything was in line for Josh to make it. So the staff, thank you from the bottom of our hearts. They visited us in the hospital. Mr. Verka texted us every day, probably visited us every other week. So again, staff at the school is incredible. And first responders, just thank you so much. Because of you guys, Josh he went to his first homecoming game Friday, and he went to the homecoming dance Saturday as well. So thank you so much.
Micah, do you want to go up?
Thank you. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the council and the police department for having this night, this evening to honor Rally and all of the first responders. I'd like to also send a thank you to the police department. You guys are always right there for our school. And if everyone wasn't in place as they were that day, that fateful day, we wouldn't be here with this young man perhaps. So that makes me most proud to see that everything that we practice at school, all of our emergency drills and everything came into play that day. Rally, she's an extremely humble person, and it took a lot for me to get her here tonight. When this happened, she didn't even want to stand before the staff to be recognized, and instead deferred to all of our police department and EMT. So Rally, you really, amazing nurse, but an amazing person as well, and a daily responder, not just a first responder. So thank you, Rally, and thank you all once again. I appreciate it.
So if I could have Acting Sergeant Sean Crisfield, Officer Sisson, firefighter paramedics, and Chris Rally up here, we'd like to present you with the certificates and take a picture with the council.
We'll go on the balance. You guys have to go up front.
This is an unusually tall crowd, and I'm usually a tall one.
All right. Let's take a few. 1, 2, 3. We'll do one this way too. I think Josh should. Josh. Yeah, Josh, you want to
Yeah, Josh needs to be up.
It's the most important guy to be there. In the future in city government.
All right, here we go. 1. You say 2.
2. 3.
3.
You got them all? All right, give me one real quick, guys. 1, 2. There we go. Thank you.
All right.
And I'm gonna give them a minute to file out before I hand it over to the city manager for the next celebration.
Okay. Not gonna be easy to top that. Thank you, Chief Folinga. That was pretty amazing. I remember that day well, and it's great to see it all come back around. All right, well, we have another special occasion tonight, and that is the retirement next week, honoring Al Abrego. Al has worked for the city for 43 and a half years in our Streets and Parks department. That is quite an impressive feat. So we have a few things planned for you tonight, Al, and I'm glad your family is here to see it and hear how much we appreciate you. So I'm going to push this back to the mayor, who we have a proclamation for you, and she's going to read that. Then it's come back to me. I have a few more words to say, and then we have a surprise speaker unless he snuck out. I don't know if he's here. Oh, he's way in the back hiding.
Okay. So I have a proclamation honoring Alec Abrego upon his retirement. Whereas the City Council would like to recognize Alec Abrego's 43 years of exemplary service to the city of Palos Verdes Estates upon his retirement. Whereas Alec Abrego was hired by the city on March 1, 1981 as a maintenance worker in the Streets and Parks Division of the Public Works Department. Whereas Alec Abrego became the Streets and Parks expert in irrigation systems, asphalt, and chainsaws. Good. Whereas Alec Abrego was relied upon to set up and ensure the annual Lenata Bay Homeowners Association Harvest Festival Pumpkin Race, and that it has been set up properly. Whereas for over 40 years, Alec Abrego has strung lights around the Malaga Cove and Lenata Bay Christmas trees for the community to enjoy. Whereas Alec Abrego has served the city well with his knowledge and desire to help and share information with others. Whereas after 43 years of exemplary service, Alec Abrego will retire on Halloween, October 31st, 2024, and spend more time with his wife of 47 years, Debbie Abrego, their children and grandchildren. Now therefore, I, Mayor Dawn Murdoch, on behalf of the City Council and residents of the city of Palos Verdes Estates, California, do hereby honor Alec Abrego for his dedicated years of service to this great city and wish him much happiness as he begins this exciting new chapter.
All right, well, while the mayor hands it to him, I have a few facts from 1981 that I thought I'd share. What life was like back when Al was a mere pup coming to work in the city. Ronald Reagan was president in 1981. The TV show Dallas, not the football team, was the #1 show on TV. Raiders of the Lost Ark was the highest grossing film. Average rent in 1981 was $315 a month. Well, with the federal minimum wage at $335, that's all they could afford. But if you wanted to buy a home, the average 30-year mortgage rate was 16.63 in 1981. As part of our tag team, I'm turning it back to the mayor for a very special gift that should be to your right.
Yes. We're hoping this brings good memories, not bad memories. But we have here, for all your street signs that you've created.
I made plenty of these signs. I've had plenty of.
So which street are we reading?
Yeah, we should. Now I have some facts about Al, and I think his grandson might have come. Was it you that came up with these facts? Probably not. All right. Well, after 43 years with the city, Al and his grandson figured out that he walked 8 million steps in 43 years. So he wore down 86 pairs of boots. He drove 500,000 miles within the 4.77 square miles. And he spent, probably his favorite, 1,032 hours hanging Christmas lights on a 60-foot tree, requiring 10,320 trips in the lift. So Al, with that, I'm going to ask our special speaker to come up to the podium. Maybe you can join him up at the podium, Al. I know you guys love being in the spotlight.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor Don Murdoch, members of the council. We're here today to celebrate Sal's 43rd year of working here and his retirement. My first day was with the city March 1st, 2006. Well, what are the odds? In 2001, I started as a summer crew worker, and I had the privilege of working with Al, learning irrigation. One thing that sticks in my mind is, I'm digging away, and I don't really know my head from my toe. And next thing you know, I was like, "Well, you're very persistent," So I'm like, "No, all right, I'm just gonna keep going." And which years later, in 2006, got the job, and it was his 25th anniversary that day. So every day from the start of that day, obviously, was a good day. And especially working with Al, he was a mentor to me. Definitely this man could talk, and I enjoyed every moment of it. He, taught me so much, whether it's about the Cowboys, we talked football, we just enjoyed each other's company. And those are days that I'll never forget, and definitely, the Streets and Parks Department will not be the same without Al. So I'd just like to also say that I believe at this point in time, he's the only other person that loves the city as much as I do. So it's going to be hard to see him go.
Probably more.
But on the behalf of the beautiful city of Palos Verdes Estates, I'd like to present this to you, Al. It's the best work shirt in the world. With number 43 representing years of work with the city.
Not already. I'd like to thank City Council, Mayor, and everybody. I started here back in '81 before we had contractors. So we did everything from trimming trees to fixing the streets and asphalt, painting curbs, everything else there. I love decorating the tree every year. I look forward to it. I remember when the Olympic torch came through here, back in '84, when I also had the privilege of doing the 50th anniversary for the city and seeing Buddy Epson dance in the plaza. That was very memorable. We had several employee and family picnics at Rosser Pool. Had a very good time about that. I'd just like to say thank you, everyone, especially thank you to my wife for putting up with all these very lean years working for the city. But I enjoyed every day of it. Well, not some of the nights when I had to wake up in the middle of the night and clear a driveway or clear a street, that was tough, but I still enjoyed it. Still enjoy it to this day. Thank you very much. We're grateful.
Well,
I always next year.
I had two more 1981 facts that might brighten Al's day. Al, what started in 1981? Do you know? Fernando Mania.
Oh, yeah.
1981. I hear that was your favorite player. But more importantly, the 1981 World Series was the Dodgers versus the
Yankees.
Yankees, and the Dodgers won.
The Dodgers won.
All right, so let's go full circle. Bring home World Series win.
Nice.
Thank you, Al.
Moving on with the agenda. It's time for the mayor's report. First off, for those of you who weren't here last meeting or didn't read the last meeting, watch the last meeting, Jim Roos, Councilmember Jim Roos has resigned his seat. It's not Jim, it's David. He and his family have moved to Austin, Texas. He will be missed by all. I know that he brought much levity to the job for me. In fact, he texted me at 6:29 to tell me to get the meeting going. So we wish him and his family the best of luck in their new lives. And because the new council will be seated in December, we're not going to fill his seat. We're just going to spend the next month and a half holding down the fort with the four of us. Last weekend was homecoming at PB High School. I had the opportunity to attend the Friday night football game. It was great to see the kids out there having fun. And, you know, I'd like to thank our residents for being understandable and or understanding and enduring any inconvenience that this activity provides for the evening, as well as for the following night, which is the homecoming dance. It happens once a year. I know it's loud. I know it's bright. My house, I'm up the street, and you know, I could have just had the party at my house as loud as it was. But you know, I do appreciate everyone's understanding and letting the youth have this opportunity. Want to remind people about a couple of upcoming activities. First off, the Lanada Bay Harvest Festival is this Sunday from 2 to 6. Hopefully, people have registered their pumpkins for the pumpkin race. And on October the 30th. Council will be having a joint meeting with the Planning Commission to discuss the draft comprehensive objective design standards. Stay tuned. I think that the start time is shifting a little bit, so we will finalize that, and that will be posted on the city website. Most of you likely know there's an important election 2 weeks from today to elect 2 new people to our city council and to join Council members Kim McGowan and Mayor Pro Tem Losey. Please do your research and vote and make your voice be known for our city. And then finally, you know, I do a fair amount of walking around our beautiful city, and over the past few months, I've noticed more and more houses with trash cans sitting at the curb, and I think part of this is the effect of the change in Athens operational processes. And you know, did you know that putting trash cans or trash in general in the city right of way is actually a violation of our municipal code? Code 8.16.020, refuse, green waste, recyclable containers, states that no person shall place or cause to be placed any refuse upon any public street or any other public place except during our special bulky trash waste pickup. It doesn't say that, but it says special refuse events. And then code 8.16.090 about placement of containers says that containers shall be kept concealed from view of those on neighboring properties and streets. So I just want to remind people, you know, we pay a premium for the service that we get from Athens because our code states that we do not have curb trash cans and curb pickup. And so many of you may not have realized that was part of the code. And so I wanted to share that. That's it for me. Mr. City Manager, do you have a report?
I do. Thank you, Madam Mayor, good evening, members of the City Council. Before you go to the Lanada Bay Harvest Festival, you're all invited to go to the Prepared Peninsula Expo. It's a disaster preparedness event. Our police department and some of our volunteers will be there. It is at Peninsula High School. During the farmers markets, it'll be from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Sunday. So you have a full day of community events ahead of you this Sunday. Apropos, Al, in his retirement, talking about those late night call-outs, I wanted to thank two of our Streets and Parks employees, Anthony Mendoza, who made his first ever presentation to the city council tonight, and one of his team members, John Strum, came out on Friday night along with four of our police officers. There was a tree down. I don't remember the name of the street. It was way up there on top of the hill, 2 trees down, and they were able to get that tree cut up, move out the road, reopen the road. It was closed in a matter of less than an hour. Me being the nerd that I am, I had nothing going on that night, so I drove out there and watched. I was very, very impressed. A little disappointed they wouldn't let me use the chainsaws or drive the tractor. I don't know why. And then I'm going to turn over our city clerk, Tamika Cook, with a little more information about the election and vote centers and whatnot. So go ahead, Tamika.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This announcement is just to provide an update to residents about the city's vote centers and ballot drop-off box locations, which include the South Coast Botanic Garden in the Francis Young Hall. Their schedule, they will have an 11-day schedule commencing on October 26th and will be open from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. through November 4th. And the Palos Verdes Intermediate School will have a 4-day schedule commencing on November 2nd and will be open from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. However, both locations will be open on election day from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Please remember, should you choose to vote in person, you will be required to surrender your mail-in ballot. So please be sure to bring it with you. And the city's drop-off ballot location is located outside of the City Hall entrance on the second level parking lot. If you want to check the status of your mail-in ballot, residents can go to lavote.gov or contact the Los Angeles County Registrar's Office at 1-800-815-2666, option 2. Thank you.
And I believe we're working to get that information up on our website, and we'll get it out in the next newsletter in time for the election. That concludes my remarks. I think Chief Olivia is taking too much of our time tonight, so I'm going to start with you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, communications from the public. This portion of the agenda is reserved for comments from the public on items which are not on the agenda. Due to state law, no action can be taken by the council this evening on matters presented under this section. If the council determines action is warranted, the item may be referred to staff or placed on a future agenda. All right, let's start with Christine Fine.
Aren't we required to have those doors open?
I mean, well, but we can open.
In fact, I would ask my question for the city clerk. I thought the doors had to be open during a public meeting. Oh, I made that rule up. Well, I'm pretty sure it's a rule, so we'll go with it.
Hey, council members, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I am Christine Fine. My husband and I have been residents of PDE for 30 years. I have served on the board of directors of the Beach Club, having been elected 3 times to do so. My husband Art is one of the 3 sponsors of the PDE Land Preservation Act, led by council candidate Des Myers. This requires a vote of the residents. This Land Preservation Act requires a vote of the residents in order to rezone open space. Working with Des was a pleasure. She is a true leader. She brings teams together and focuses on shared goals. Working together resulted in the Land Preservation Act passing. We love our city, and we were honored to be part of her team. We have known Des Myers and her family for many years, and we are shocked by the anger, rage, and false claims about her, especially by a speaker here at City Council. We are grateful our wonderful community turned down offers by that community member to put up her hate signs, which she proudly displays on her own lawn. Her raging on Nextdoor is no better. Aren't we done with hate and division? False claims about Des without facts are beneath us. It is not what we as a community can accept. We are adults that value meaningful discussions about facts and solutions rather than emotional gaslighting. Des brings experience and a fresh voice to address our lingering problems, to balance the budget, secure our wonderful police, and continued action to protect our land. Des believes transparency should never be a fear of any governing officials. And Des has the trust of the many. This is why we and many others support Des' candidacy. She continues to rise above the hate and handle herself with strength, dignity, and integrity, and brings people together for the future of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Valerie Gorsuch.
Honorable Mayor, City Council, City staff, and residents, I'm Valerie Gorsuch. I'm the Palos Verdes Estates Neighborhood Watch President and the Malaga Cove Area Coordinator. And Neighborhood Watch very much would also like to thank Alec for his service to the city. And for me personally, he was so helpful in getting anything that Neighborhood Watch was setting up out there. And that tree that he's decorated makes me feel good because it's a tree that my daughter planted in Cub Scouts. It's kind of like my family tree. And the pipes in Malaga Cove that were just put in are gorgeous. Thank you for that. Beautiful. Yes, indeed, you have mentioned the expo on Sunday, the 27th of the Peninsula High, and also the Lanada Bay Harvest Festival. Neighborhood Watch will be at both of those events, and we will have gifts for anybody that stops by at our table. We do want you to save the date for our annual meeting, which is November 17th. It's at 2:00 here in City Council Chambers. There will be a raffle for some wonderful prizes. If you're a paid member, you get one raffle ticket. If you're a block captain, you get two. So maybe you might want to join up and be a block captain as well. On November 3rd, on Sunday, we get to turn our clocks back. And we're going to turn them back, all back. Now, when you turn off the lights of your house looks more vulnerable because it's darker earlier and people will be watching to see whether anybody is at home or not. So please put your lights on a timer, be prepared, and make your house look lived in at all the time. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. John White.
Thank you, City Council. My name is John White. My wife and I have lived here for 44 years. We raised a child here and proud to be part of the community. I can recall many years ago that I came to this meeting, and I don't remember which one of you said it, but it stuck in my head, and it said, we should not come to this meeting and trash people. And since I remember that, I am compelled to speak after hearing the horrific statements made at the last council meeting by a woman who claims to be a community leader. She is mistaken. She and her obsessive, divisive propaganda campaign have been soundly rejected by most of the community who see her wage what is undignified lives without substance or merit. It is for this reason I fully support the election of Des Myers. She is a true leader. As a retired police officer, I know firsthand Des' commitment to safety and supporting our local police. She is the only candidate that supports fully funding our police calipers, retirement funds to secure them and their families in retirement, and is committed to balancing the budget and finally fully funding our police department. Des brings a fresh voice to the address our lingering problems to balance the budget, secure our wonderful police, and take action to protect our land. Transparency should never be fear of any governing official, and Des has the trust of many. Time and again, I hear personal attacks against an outside who seeks physical responsibility and transparency. Why is there so much anger and fear? Yet each time Des handles herself with the strength and dignity we need to bring people together and address city issues. Please join me in supporting Des' election by voting for Des, only Des. Thank you.
Thank you. Phyllis, Sri.
Good evening. My name is Phyllis Scree. My name is Phyllis Scree, 356 via Almar. My husband and I have lived in Palos Verdes Estates for over 50 years. We are one of the sponsors of the PV Land Preservation Act, which was led by council candidate Desiree Myers. This law now requires a vote of the residents before the city can rezone open space. Working with Des has been a pleasure. She assembled a group to gather signatures, and she led the Land Preservation Act to a successful completion. We were honored to be a part of this group, protecting the city we love. We have had the pleasure of knowing and supporting Desiree over the years, and we believe the city is fortunate to have someone so qualified to be willing to serve our city. She is well documented, having attended many of the council meetings, and has the analytical skills to evaluate data. Unfortunately, we continue to hear a member of our city making angry and emotional statements about Desiree at council meetings. Her statements are without facts or merit. During the last election, a smear campaign was run against Des, stating she would get rid of our police. It was false then, and it is false now. Desiree represents many of us who seek fiscal responsibility and transparency in our city government. Our city has significant problems ahead with debt, deficit spending, and high turnover in our police and city staffing. Des is a fiscal conservative, and being retired, she has the time, the willingness, and the skills to lead our city through these difficult times. Please join us in voting for Des Myers for PVE City Council. Let's stop the smear. Thank you.
Thank you. Barbara Jensen.
Hi, thank you so much for doing everything that you guys are doing. I stopped by to have a little concern here. I live on 1241 via Landita. We have a construction going on at 1249, which is like 40 feet from me. And then there's another one, 1253, that's 60 feet from me. And they're going on at the same time. The first time we complained, they said the planning commission said that they're going to go until December or maybe possibly longer. October 15, I had an accident backing out of my driveway because contractor from one of those buildings was parked across my 22 feet street illegally, and there was somebody else's car was parked by my mailbox. He couldn't get out without causing any commotion. I wanted to be a nice neighbor, slowly back out. Well, that didn't work, and I hit their contractor car. So after learning that it's my fault because I backed out, I feel like I was a victim. And if I was having a heart attack there's no ambulance could get through with all those cars that they're there parked every other day. So I just want to ask that we have some kind of a parking restriction for the remainder of all these buildings that's going on. Also, I have a request that we shouldn't allow two or more homes right next to each other have a construction going on. And after all, we pay taxes, so we are, we have a right to live in this street as well. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Jensen, thank you. Thank you for coming in. If you could leave your phone number with me, we'll follow up. I'm also gonna ask Chief Halinga to send an officer out to take a look and just to see if see what it looks like out there, and if we need to follow up with the contractors, try to come up with a plan we want. Okay, please leave me your phone number so I can follow up with you.
All right, I'll pass it on.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a request. You're only allowed to speak once on a topic, but thank you. Yes, you may.
After everybody else.
You're up. If you could just pass that in, that would be great.
Hello, and it's so nice to see my neighbors that in everyday life, I look at your house, but I don't see you because I'm traveling and you're busy, but it's really just concerning to hear what they're concerned about, And the other neighbor that I don't know, but I can appreciate the dumping ground of contracting things and the de-beautification of where we live. I was in Bozeman, Montana, that has so many trees and many open spaces to see how they handle it and appreciate. And it is the happiest country I've ever been at. Just, it's wonderful, happy people. It was just by chance that I looked at the agenda, and I'm so glad I did, because it has been on my mind to pose creating a wildlife committee, where we start using the advantages of the Coastal Commission. And there's so many, there are many people in our community too. I'll say I was on the California Gnatcatcher study that did qualify for endangered species in Rancho PV 30 years ago. But besides that, we are a city that has birds, pollinators, hawks that mate for life, owls. They're right in my yard. I'm your neighbor right next door. I've been very unhappy how the back has been kept, and I actually have standing as your neighbor for the well-keeping of that area. So I'd like to bring that to you and say that. I think it needs to be considered. And I'll be very happy to be helpful. But again, we are making decisions, it seems, or opposing. The planning commission seems to be the common denominator, but the city council too, likes change, but isn't pro-environment. Sorry to say, the roundabout, we've taken out our environment, and everyone on this council was pretty okay with it. So the Bennett contract is an increase of $300,000, but it's proposed that they take the city back parking lot. We shouldn't do that. That should be resident space, and we should develop it, if anything, to sit and enjoy, or to see how other places do it. Let me show you. It should not be for more mechanical buildup, and we should not be doing the pesticides. Restricted use, that's a word salad. That's a misnomer. As long as a contractor gets it for a city, it's no longer restricted.
Thank you, Darcel. Your 3 minutes is up.
Thank you.
Terry Pearson?
Thank you. I'll be brief. I'm Terry Pearson. I moved to Palos Verdes in 1971. And I happen to be the neighbor across the street from Desiree Myers. And it's comforting for me to hear all the nice comments about her. I only have one comment that I'd like to clear up. Some time ago, and maybe also recently, there was a rumor circulated about her that she was against the police department. Well, I can tell you for certain that that is not true. I've had many conversations with Debbie over the last 40 or more years, and she is very supportive of the police department. You know, I'm a retired high school principal, and to give you an example of how things happen, Jane Fonda had her kids at my school, and Jane was very supportive of the school and backed everything we did. We had our disagreements, but we always worked them out. And so her kids were at school. She was there, supportive parent, but it was amazing. All these parents kept calling me up about Jane Fonda. Jane Fonda this, Jane Fonda that. And it's amazing how people get started with making negative statements about people. And I just wanted to clarify the one thing, the one statement that Debbie is against the police department is absolutely, positively wrong. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. True. Okay. Anyone else? Last call. All right, let's move on to the consent agenda. We have 10 items on the consent agenda. Number 1, approval of warrants. Number 2, receive and file financial statements for the period ending September 30, 2024. Number 3, city council meeting actions. 4, planning commission meeting actions. 5, consider amendment number 2 to the agreement with Bennett Landscaping to modify the annual contract. Number 6, consider a new municipal services agreement with Los Angeles County Department for Animal Care and Control for fiscal years 24 to 29. 7, consideration of a letter of support to the League of California Cities regarding a General Assembly resolution. 8, consider amendment number 2 to the professional services agreement with MNS to continue to provide an assistant planner. 9, consideration of approval of the public available pay schedule for fiscal year 24-25. 10, adoption of resolution 24-52 regarding the appointment of an interim public works director. So I have the city treasurer has asked me to pull number 1, the warrants. The city manager said we needed to pull and get clarification on number 10, the appointment of the interim public works director. I would like to pull number 5, the Bennett contract, and number 8, the MNS contract. Does anyone else have anything?
Say that again.
So,
1, 5, 8, 10. 1, 5, 8, 10. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't.
She went to this big long list. Say that again?
Read the whole list again. Okay, so I will stop starting doing that.
Did anybody else want to pull anything?
All right, so I would move approval of the consent.
First, I need to do public comment. What does that mean, Paul? That means we're going to talk about it.
Rather than just approve it in one action, pull it and actually discuss it.
Thank you. So I want to, is there any public comment on items 2 through 4, 6, 7, and 9? I don't have any cards. I don't see. Back to you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Right, so I move for approval of consent agenda items 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, and 9.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, let's start with number 1.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Apparently, a check was missed during the last check processing day, and we don't want to be late for SoCal Gas. So I've been asked to sign check number 2872 in the amount of $346.97. This does not appear on the warrants. It appears appropriate that we pay it because of the pending late charge or possible late charge. So I recommend that we sign it and send it.
Any questions from council? Any public comment on this? We have a motion for this and the warrants in general.
I'll move that we approve the warrants as presented in addition to the $300 and odd for the gas company.
there a second?
I'll second
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, number 5. So this is the Bennett contract. I don't have any questions. Does anyone have any questions on it? Otherwise, I'll do public comment and then I have some comments to make. No? Okay, is there any public comment on the Bennett contract? Marcel?
Yes, thank you. It's disconcerting to hear there's no question. There should be a huge question. Where is the money coming from? And anyways, why would we increase by several $100,000 and give up prime real estate for their equipment? Why aren't we thinking of our environment? Why aren't we thinking of keeping it poison-free with the gateway here to herbicidal use that, by the way, becomes resistant in the environment, the weeds, but it kills our environment for migrating bees, hummingbirds, animals that exist here, things we want. I do appreciate the McGowan Foundation that they accomplished with the city, the beautification medium, and I appreciate that that's still there. I always wonder about the spraying and what it's killing. But we don't want to have an area that looks nice but isn't good for the environment, for the things that are naturally here before we were ever born. I have great questions and concern how we're allowing Bennett to set our wildlife program, because that's essentially what it is. It's our environmental program, the footprint of it. Poisoning our environment, and I would get it on 3 sides. Let's just for a moment talk about the class action suits against Roundabout. Now it's changed its name. It's a gelosphate. That's the product. There are people that know it better. I just know that when it was sprayed, people got alarmed. The city was called, and now it's being allowed again. No notice. I was just lucky. I checked. But our environment should be safe. And I recall like 3 years ago, or maybe it was 4, there were dogs in the Malaga Cove area that were getting cancer and dying. Like there was a concentrate of like 5 dogs. It was 1 year and a half span. Well, we're smelling, we're taking our dogs in here that we're, so willing to call coyote for and other things, but we don't stop the poisoning of the very area that our children, your grandchildren are walking. Your grandchildren are walking there with their people. They want to take off their shoes. Do not allow poisoning of our environment. The mantra should be, do no harm.
Thank you,
I will offer help with real connections.
Your time.
I don't want to just give you a problem.
Thank you.
But this is important.
Any other public comment on this item? Okay, I'm gonna bring it back. I'm gonna bring it back to council and why I pulled this item. I repeatedly expressed a desire to have a stable contract and a partnering relationship with a landscape maintenance contractor. We talked about this a lot last meeting, and I had high hopes that with that discussion, things would get modified and we'd be all set for the next couple of years, and we wouldn't have to continue to keep talking about the landscape maintenance contract. Unfortunately, maybe I wasn't clear at the last meeting because the staff report and what changed doesn't really reflect the concerns that I had brought up. First off, I brought up that we reduced the frequency of maintenance in the right-of-ways and the PLs, whatever PL stands for, but we're being asked to pay 2% more, and that it's a better value for our residents to stay with the original higher frequency at the previous rate. So that change wasn't made. So now we're paying more for less work in those areas. Number two, I highlighted that areas that were added to the contract that seemed to be incorrectly priced based on size or current state or level of maintenance required. Now, many of those were adjusted, right? Before the meeting, they were identified that it was worth like $33,000. But perversely, in this contract, 12 areas were increased, which brought back another 25,000. So for me, it feels a bit like a shell game. Like we've got a number we're aiming for, and no matter what we do, we just keep ending up at that number. Number three, I expressed concern that there are still significant areas that overlap between Bats and Bennett. And those are still there. I don't understand why we have both vendors maintaining the same areas. I realize they're doing it at different times of the year, but from an operational standpoint, that doesn't make sense to me. Number four, I raised the issue of the incongruence with city code, since the city is maintaining right-of-ways that are the responsibility of some homeowners. Staff's recommendation is to keep them in the contract in case the homeowner refuses to maintain their right-of-way. Our municipal code clearly states it's the responsibility of the adjacent property owner to maintain the parkway around their home. If homeowners are going to refuse to maintain it, then that's a code enforcement issue. It's not a landscape maintenance issue. Number five, I noted that the city is paying to remove resident encroachments into parklands. For more than 4 years, this council has discussed the importance of enforcing the removal of parkland encroachment. And now the city is picking up the tab to clear those encroachments, which frankly is wrong and unfair to the residents who are encroaching. And then finally, number six, I brought up the gopher problem and the issues with DG, which are part of the contract, and that there's no accountability. So I walked PV Drive West today, the median, and there's no room for the gophers now in the dirt area. So now they're working on the DG path. So either there's DG missing, and now we've got all these holes showing up in the DG path. And this is part of what's supposed to be part of our maintenance. And if we're not going to maintain it, or if we need to do something different, let's pull the cost out of these rates and put the money someplace else that's actually going to effectively take care of the gophers and the DG. So at minimum, I think we need to reinstate the current free frequency of maintenance of the right-of-ways and PLs. Paying more for less service is bad business, and it's bad for the residents. And I think there's another 50 to 100 grand that could be taken out of this contract. And that's a lot of trees that could be trimmed. That's a number of hiring incentives we can do for new police officers. And it's a heck of a lot of contract help we could do to help shore up the finance department. So those are my comments on this.
I think I asked this question last time. We can't pluck we can't just pull the gopher service out and make it a separate contract, right? The rates for that are embedded in everything else, correct? Remind me, somebody, one of you,
Yes.
3 people all sitting in this room.
Yes, it's within the contract.
So it's, okay, so it's not, okay. That's what I was thinking as you were speaking, why we didn't just pull that out. I think that's why, we brought that up last time.
I was walking and this little nose popped.
Oh, man.
And I jumped, I mean, like right in the trail. Right in the path.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
So I don't know, Carrier Speed. So in the very beginning of the staff report, I think this was my issue from last time. Okay, so you're asking for authorization to extend the contract for 2.3 of your recommendation. Can you go through that because I'm not clear on what it is that's going to do. It's at the very first page of the staff report. Point number 3 under the recommendation.
Yeah, so, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, so the point of this is to give it up to 4 years. So what you would be approving is one additional year for next year, and then 2 additional 1-year extensions at the discretion of the city manager.
And say that again, Carrie? No.
The CPI does not take effect until year 4. So that was a change that we talked to with Mr. Bennett. Initially was going to take in effect year 3. He agreed to hold off on the CPI until the last year of the contract.
So they're keeping the original 3-year flat.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. Sorry, that's not how I read that sentence and
It's an awkward
it was
sentence.
unclear. Okay. Okay, thank you.
So I didn't get to enjoy the last meeting. It sounded like it was a lot of fun. So pardon me if any of this is duplicative. Maybe I should have stayed on vacation. I see Mr. Bennett's here. Would you mind joining us in the fun? Because I have a couple questions I'd love to hear from you directly. And sincere thank you for your work and for coming and for joining us. And I'll even go so far as to say for putting up with all the process, we're grateful. Can you, first of all, I want to clarify one thing that I heard from the speaker that doesn't add up in the math of what I read in the staff report. We're actually reducing the size of the contract by $100,000, correct?
That's correct. But
So we're going from 1.5x million to 1.3x million is the way that I read it.
Right.
Okay. The second question is, and I think a lot of us, I won't speak for everyone here, I think a lot of us residents struggle with this issue of herbicides and maintenance. Early on in my tenure, we actually, with the vendor at that time, made a decision to not allow it at all, with good intent. And what we heard over and over again was, costs would escalate. By the way, they escalated anyway. I'm just curious what your thoughts are. I don't want to get into a not roundup versus something else argument. I'd like to understand if it's possible. I mean, anything's possible, but if it's possible to perform the work of this contract without the use of herbicides, let's start with at all, whether or not organics are available, and if so, what the potential cost impact would be to the city to not do that and be able to continue to maintain its environments.
Well, organics are as effective as a glyphosate. And there's not just, we're using that, we would be using a glyphosate, also fusilate, which is a selective herbicide. Those are the two that are still in our toolbox, so to say. Fusilate, it actually goes after the plant selectively, so I can spray that into ground cover and control the ground cover for a long time, whereas picking it out individually, it's almost near impossible. It really depends the level of service you want. If you want average, you could take it out. But I want to bring you excellent service. And that's what I've been up here for the last 42 weeks harping on, is that I need to have my tools. You may take away my blower, take away my edger, take away, it's like taking that computer away from you on your work desk. How do you
Sounds great. There you go.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I'm trying to provide something that gets results for you.
I understand.
And that's why I'm here tonight to say that it is. Now, there are trade-offs in anything, not just the cost, but if we go to using machinery, that's CO2 emissions. We can't use batteries. They're not efficient. There's no way. We can't go to an extension cord and run generators. Are still putting out pollution. So you have your trade-off on CO2, or you have it with possibly some other minor. But I think it's safer, actually, in the long run. We've had several windshields that were affected in this contract. We've spoken about that. We were also handcuffed during the process of this. So and I mentioned it in the last.
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
We had
What's the issue with
several windshields broken because the weed eaters throw up rocks. And they hit windshields. And the windshields up here are cheap. So
I have to factor in that. But there are other things that I've brought up that could help save money. The road closure at Montemar and PB Drive West cost us $6,000 or $8,000. And our line item was $4,000. You think we're making money there? Did anyone bail us out on that line item? No. And we have a pretty much stable contract for you to consider tonight with a better level of service than you've had before. And as you know, you had to do a lot of deferred maintenance here. And some of this gopher issues is part of that. You can't control gophers 6 times a year. So if you want to upgrade that, you can upgrade it. There are ways to go around it. I've been open to dialogue. Anybody that wants to talk to me, I'd like to find solutions for it. But as the contract sits now, this is the best that you have. And don't forget, you just bid this last year, and it's down from the previous bidders. That's why we're up here tonight. So I think you're getting the best deal in town. We've proven ourselves for 42 weeks going through the merry-go-round that's happened here. And if you want us to continue, we'd like to continue.
Thank you.
Can you comment, you really understand probably the science of it better, because we do get a lot of comments from, from one of our speakers and, but just being around town, definitely get comments about, pesticides moving. I said, okay, well, what's your, all right, well, trade-offs. Okay, what's your concern? I think for me, I guess I have to believe that I'm trusting my partner to use them responsibly and appropriately. But is the concern that there's seepage into the water? Is it that, you walk across it when, within a certain amount of time? I mean, how are we, say a little bit more about how the community can, because we do have to be able to tell residents that there's a trade-off here. Like, you don't want weeds and you don't want pesticides and you don't, like one of these things has to give. So what, can you say a little bit more about, people obviously are afraid, it's a scary thing. So how do you address that? If you were us and someone said, oh no, I'm afraid of this, don't use these. What's the response?
We're registered with the County of LA to provide this service. We've done it without issue. We can continue doing it. We do it moderately. We don't just do it to do it. So we do it sparingly. And chemicals cost money too, but we're trying to get you the best results. In this contract, it was changed so that we won't do any herbicide treatments in any of the play fields, any lawn areas. That was taken out. So we're going to do the perimeters, but we wouldn't do the interiors. So speed zone was taken out of the contract, essentially for that purpose. You have to remember that you have a lot of adjoining facilities that use flat phosphate in your own city right now. So being hypocritical to this contract and not condoning it over at the Palos Verdes Golf Course, you might want to take that up because they use it. The PV Land Conservancy uses it. And what are they doing? They're working on habitats. So they use it. I've been in communication with them. And I know the biologists over there. So you have to respect.
So help me understand. So like if you're used, so let's say you're spraying on PV Drive West. And I don't know if you're gonna do it every week, every day, every month. I mean, so does that mean, okay, I shouldn't walk my dog on the day that you spray it or 5 days after you spray it? And that, so what does that really mean for people? And does that mean that that is soaking through into, so if you do that and then it rains, then is that chemical soaking into the groundwater? Is it going out to the storm drains? Like what physically is happening?
We follow the recommendations of a pest advisor. Some third party, it's not us that writes those recommendations. I've got 40 years, I don't know how many years he's got, but he's very confident to write those. So they're in those recommendations, it tells you that the reentry period is when it's dry. And that's what we're following. We wrote quite a lengthy step-by-step process that we'll be following too, that Public Works has finally approved, so that we'll keep it very up and up, and that, I'm sure Steve can provide that to city council. And that took quite a long time to vet that. So I hope that answers your question.
It doesn't, so I'll try again. So I walk, sometimes with you, through a pathway. And, so for example, that path, do we call it Brooklyn? I don't remember what that is, a pathway, I think. So it happened to have been whacked yesterday, I think. Okay, nice. So if somebody's whacking it and weed whacking it, and then let's say that then after they weed whack it, they go through and spray it. How would I know that? As somebody who lives in that neighborhood and who walks my dog on that path twice a day, I was reading the staff report thinking, well, I guess I don't want to walk my dog on that path on the day they spray it, but how would I know what day that is? And so, right, so I think that's where the fear of residents comes in. So how do we manage that to make people aware and comfortable and understand?
Well, this pest advisor, his recommendation is the re-entry is after it's dry. And that's when you walk in. And we'll have signs posted until it's dry.
So you would post signs?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, there's protocols for that.
Okay, so all right, that's what I was trying to get to. Do you put a sign that says, I'm gonna spray here today, don't walk here till tomorrow?
Right. How long is that?
It's until it dries.
Right, what is
We
that?
follow the weather. We don't spray when we know it's gonna rain. We put mist out. We don't flush it like a garden hose out there. It's misted on these weeds.
I'm curious, I'm not trying to oppose you here. Is that a half hour? Is it half a day?
10 minutes usually,
Oh.
if it's 70 to 80 degrees. If it's overcast, it might take a little longer for it to dry.
Okay, so it's not days and days and days
No,
of somebody
that's
accidentally
hours.
walking on the
That's
path,
not
it's
true.
hours, okay.
That's bad advice. That's not true.
That's
Marcel, this is not a conversation. You're hearing something that's easily debunkable. And there's been no notice, Mr. Bennett.
Darcel.
All right, so didn't mean to go down the road.
All right,
Let me try again a little bit, and I'm gonna kind of repeat what I said the last time we got together. We spend so much time trying to second guess our management. And we've got a city manager, we've got a city engineer, they have spent hours and hours working with these vendors and trying to come up with the best solution for our community at the most reasonable price. And I think we need to show the support and confidence that these people are doing the best for our city. And I'm ready to move that we adopt the contract as it's been presented.
I appreciate that, David. A fresh set of eyes can find things, and I know Derek was thankful of the things that I identified. So I'm not saying this is a show of lack of support. It's just additional information.
But at what point does it become diminishing returns? Because we've spent a great deal of time on this topic over the last 6 or 8 months, and we rehashed a lot of the same material. And I think it's time that we make a decision and move on. We've got bigger issues to deal with in our community.
Well, one of those is a deficit budget, and anything
That's
we
correct.
can do to try and minimize that deficit is what our residents want us to do.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, I agree with David. I think that I do appreciate that you dig into the contract and you pull. I mean, I do, and I think you've put them, staff and Mr. Bennett, on notice that these are where our concerns are, and that I think what the instruction is. Look, guys, this is where our men and women. This is where our concern is, and we expect you to manage this. I think this is way better than where we were a couple years ago. So, sorry, because everybody's talking. I'm like, okay, wait, is mine gonna ring? So I do think, and at the end of the day, there's always an exit on right? If we are mutually unhappy, hopefully everybody comes back to the table. If one side is unhappy, we're mutually, we come back to the table and we work together. I think to David's point, I think that I think we do have to move ahead with the contract, and I think, and I do think you've raised really good points, and I think that I think we all have, and we've tasked the team with delivering.
So let me ask one question, and this is for staff. And Sean, thank you for all your information. when we have concerns from residents around the pesticide issue, what is our response and or our education around the noticing, the validation, and the response to that? Because, inevitably, this is not the end of that. I think that, anything requires balance. I'd love to not use it at all. And I think we tried that. We went through a couple of contractors and we had residents completely up in arms over how the landscaping worked. And so I think I've shifted from 0 to as minimal as possible, but I don't want as minimal as possible to be a free-for-all. So, what's the answer to that? How do we communicate?
Councilmember Kemps, I can start the answer here for you. So per the agreement, the chemical use, there's restrictions on how they're supposed to use it. And when they're supposed to use it, who's supposed to use it. And then as far as notification or comments or concerns from the residents, there'll be a form on the city's website that will be responsible, Bennett will be responsible to answer those calls, those emails. The information will be on the website that will be submitted directly to Bennett. We will have copies of that, but they will be required to respond to the residents that have concerns.
I'm not sure that satisfies my question or my concern. I think it's city newsletter worthy. I think it's discussion worthy. That there are trade-offs and that there are combination cost and functionality and reliability concerns. I think we need to review this with some regular cadence. I'm not comfortable just signing off on, here's a renewal and we'll just let the city manager take it from there. That's not a lack of confidence in any of you. I think that there are residents with real concerns beyond those that are here tonight. And that the concerns about pesticides are real and that the lawsuits over pesticides are real. So I don't want to just approve it and let it go. So, how do we handle that? And I'm sorry, with all due respect, wouldn't matter if it was Bennett or Sally Jane's Landscape Company, simply giving the answer, residents can submit their concerns and we'll delegate back to the contractor the responsiveness. That doesn't work for me.
Let me jump in here a little bit. Couple comments on that. Sean mentioned that he hadn't used herbicides in X months. That's because we shut him down from that. We did that because we could not come to an agreement on the process by which to use it. I got involved on more than one occasion. And I think that probably started in May. And I heard in the last couple of weeks, we've got the process, which is a complicated form and schedule laid out and approved on both sides. So we do take this seriously, and proof of that is he hasn't been able to use it. And if you know Sean Bennett, he has been on me for the last 4 months to get that done. The form on the website and the communication started by Sean offering to have residents call his office. We met today, discussed many of the concerns and items on this item, came up with the form. It was important to us that we saw copies of what was going to go. It wasn't just going to be a one-way to the contractor. We wanted to see copies of that. But we feel that it's important for the expert in this to respond. We could certainly create it in such a way, and I think Sean, we open to this, that we're seeing the responses, so we can monitor how that communication is going. It's challenging for somebody at city staff to respond to technical questions regarding these things. So I'm comfortable with that. I think we can modify it a little bit more so we're seeing both sides of the communication. As far as newsletter and information, I just wrote on my sheet before you started, a big square thing. Should we put educational information on our website? And I think we should. I heard it here when it started, and it's good content, and I think it's something important to do. and, we can get on that.
FAQs, where is it being used, highlighted areas?
Way better to be ahead of it rather than.
I agree. Now, you just said something very interesting, Councilmember Kim. She said, where is it being used? That was one of the big sticking points with that. This is not a knock on Bennett. This is.
I agree.
Yeah, this is one of the sticking points is we wanted a schedule so we could prepare. I can't get a day's notice, I'm gonna be hit X area where Mayor Pro Tem Lozzi's walking your dog and get on the website. I can't. But if I get it a couple of weeks out, but you also heard from Mr. Bennett that it's all weather permitting. So we have to work on it, but I think the seriousness of it that we took is we shut that down. Ended up costing us a little bit of money because there's areas that have to be out there and remediated to get them back to start.
Okay.
But we do take it seriously and we will continue to look for ways to get that message out.
So for me, here's the gap, and sorry to draw this out. You know, sitting back as a resident, even forget my council member role, I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, okay, I'm a PDE resident, I want to know more about this. And I'm sitting here about to approve an agreement, and I'm asking myself, where are they using it? What's the frequency with which they're using it? Can I see a map? You know, if I am truly vitally concerned about it, you know, as one of our speakers in particular, if the answer can't be no, well, then at least tell me when the hell not to go there, right? At least help me understand the schedule, understand where it's going to be, understand where it is on the map of the city. You know, maybe, you know, on one end, maybe I'm not worried about it at all, but, you know, for those that actually really have true concerns about it, forget validating them or not, let's just validate that they are real concerns. They need to know where it is. And I don't want to just delegate that. I want that information out and I want it communicated, I want it available. And then I also want a mechanism, and however we approve this, so that council has the opportunity to understand in the future, whether it's me sitting here or not, how this is going, whether or not residents are comfortable with it, and not simply to entirely delegate the authority for the future renewals so that we understand what's going on and we don't just sign off on a 40-year use of all of this unconditionally. So help me understand how we can accomplish that.
So, well, I'm open to ideas. I'm open to continue to talk to Sean on ideas. I will tell you that.
And look, I'm not trying to make. I want to make life easier and not harder. Sure. But I want to address in our roles or those that are in these future seats, you know, the ability to have this conversation.
Yeah, I'm looking at the terms, and so the city council is making the extension that's going to be good from January 2025 to next December, and then that authority, as it's written, is delegated to the city manager. I think the intent of that was to give the contract and the relationship an opportunity to see future growth.
Here, Sean Mark.
Oh, you're up there. I didn't see you, Sean.
I know that a lot of this has been done in the back room, so to speak, with the public works, I guess, city engineer now, because Derek's no longer here, but Steve might not be brought up to speed. But there's a document that's, I don't know how long it took us to do, but so many iterations that hasn't been shared with you that guarantee you what you're talking about. And even the frequencies and the spraying and the notifications and the scheduling is addressed.
Okay.
So you're those concerns, and I actually use this stuff myself. So we have PPE for our guys, but I do the same thing. I wouldn't be putting this on my employees if I didn't do it too. So I think if Steve needs to add anything more to this, like maybe send them what I've been working on for the last 4, 5, 6 months, might be a good idea. And you can be brought up to speed, but it's all there. And the contract addresses it.
It's great, Sean, I think it's great that we're brought up to speed. I think the gap, and maybe Carrie can help, you know, fill this void, is not only do we not have that, and I validate your comments, but more importantly, residents that, you know, will have an immediate reaction to say, what the hell do you mean they approved that? Well, and then it goes into, where is it going to be? How frequently is it? All that stuff, right? You know what goes afterwards.
Right, it is all there.
Okay.
Carrie, I love your website idea. Maybe that information is what gets posted on the website.
cite people who have
So
concerns.
I think you'll get this information.
I think that
I'm
this,
sorry.
this,
I think it's fair to have the
public
public
food
comment.
is closed.
Your public period's closed.
This is
We're
in
talking about
response.
Darcel.
Well, then it's a disservice to our community.
That's how the public process works.
Welcome
Welcome to the state of
Well, then
California.
recognize he didn't post notices in your discussion last time.
Thank you.
No notice.
I think, I
Ms.
think,
Murdoch,
The vendor, thank you. So
and
we're
your
trying to solve
responsibility
problems.
is to know he didn't post
Yes,
and hold him accountable.
We're trying to.
Not one word of that.
Okay, so back
Or
to
knowledge.
what kind of information, hopefully staff will be able to figure out what information to put on that will answer the kinds of questions that our residents have.
That's what we've been addressing over the last 6 to 8
I'd like to reiterate that hasn't been straight for the last X months,
No, I know.
because we didn't get the information we required, including posting and noticing ahead of time.
Right, but if it's gonna start up again, the questions and the next door.
This is something that staff takes very seriously.
David?
as I look at this right now, we've got two issues that we're trying to discuss. One is trying to approve a contract amendment,
I have no issue with that.
which I think we should move ahead and do. I think the second one is that we instruct the city manager to find ways to educate or communicate the pertinent facts, either on the website or in the newsletter or whatever other combination to notify our residents, or refer them to the actual contract or this document that Sean and the city has been working on.
But I think there's also, I agree with all that. I think there's also a checkpoint for future city councils to approve this thing and not entirely delegate.
Well, they should review it at least annually as to what the,
And so maybe that's a motion.
that we could add that to the motion, I have no problem with, that annually this be reviewed as to the, success or failure of the, program.
That work?
So-
Are you asking to, in the 2026 year, have the council approve the extension?
No, I think
Or
you're
you're
saying an
looking
annual,
for-
an annual
or just an
service
annual-
review.
an
Annual review of service levels.
Opportunity to provide a comment period, presentation on how we're doing and where we're at. Is that
Against our objectives and including the pesticide, controls.
Yes.
that one? Are you amenable to that?
It comes every council.
Of course he's amenable to that. He shows up more than any other.
He shows up every week.
This time it's gonna go to contract.
Yes?
Yes, and I think what we've boilerplated now is inserted into this is all that hard work addresses, I think, each councilman. And if you want to ask me another question, I think it addresses everybody on the council about noticing, because we give them a 2-week look ahead on the spray. We give them reports when we've completed it. And we've given them a step-by-step procedure. The signage. I think, tell me if I've missed something that.
Yeah, so the only other thing I think I would be looking for would be to understand a visual map of where the intended use is on a recurring basis.
So there, in the contract, there are maps that delegate the areas and the number, and that's in the schedule, it's listed, and what we're spraying for.
Okay, so
So it is there too.
that's the gap where the communication with the residents needs to.
Okay, well, that would be up to the city at that point.
Yes.
Okay, then do I have a motion?
The residents should have a choice about poisoning the environment.
This is out of the order. Yes,
It
I will make a motion. that
Do so.
I will make a motion.
Horrible. You're a horrible council. Poison the environment. This is gonna be on the
Okay,
store.
Can we have it removed?
You're
Thank
disgusting.
you.
You're disgusting.
I will move that we approve.
Oh, I'm sure. You're disgusting.
Excuse me, but I will move that we approve the contract as staff has proposed, that we also instruct the staff that they come on an annual basis, review the progress against our
milestones and goals of the contract, including the use of pesticides. And that we also instruct the city manager to find ways to communicate these pertinent facts to our residents.
Yeah, that's enough. I'll second.
Okay, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember McGowan,
Yes.
Councilmember Kent,
Yes.
Councilmember Lozey,
Aye.
I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem Lozey.
Aye.
Mayor Murdock.
No. Okay. Next. Item number 8, amendment number 2 for MNS contract for assistant planner. Cheryl, does the assistant planner work virtually or in City Hall?
It does. It does a combination of both.
So one day in, one day out?
It's in the office, it works 16 hours a week, and it's in the office, one day, and it's remote the other day.
So I remember during our budget discussions back in June, council providing direction for, council only funding this position through October and providing direction to fill the position. And I think the staff report says that we're still in the process of doing that. So I'm curious, is this like a second round? What's the delay? Are we having problems finding people? I guess I would have expected this to have been done by now.
It's a combination. We do have, interviews scheduled for, next week, October 29th, and we're hopeful that maybe one of the candidates will be chosen for the position.
Okay, that didn't quite answer my question. So this is our first go around, so we don't know what kinds of, I'm trying to figure out, are we having trouble filling the position
Yes,
or are we just?
yes, this is not the first time we've gone out for the recruitment.
I'm talking about since the June budget.
This is the first time we had it open. We didn't have qualified candidates. It took a while to get some qualified candidates, and we scheduled interviews for October 29th.
Okay, and then based off the resumes that you've seen, what's your confidence level that you're gonna be able to fill this position?
I am hopeful.
That sounds like 30% to me.
Well,
There's no way to comment on that until we interview.
Yeah.
We had 30 applicants, we selected 5
Yeah.
to be interviewed. We're doing panel interviews next week. We have 3 individuals sitting on that panel, and if it comes to fruition, and there's somebody that's qualified, then an offer will be made. Given the time constraint, given the process to bring somebody on, background check, all of that, this item was placed before you to continue service. That is all. In answer to your question as to why this is just coming before, Cheryl mentioned that we had it open. We had to wait till we had enough to be able to have a pool of candidates, all while running other recruitments for other positions.
Okay. That's most of my questions. Any other questions from council? All right, any public comment on this? Okay. Okay, do I have a motion on this?
Sure. I move that we approve amendment number 2 to the professional services agreement with MNS for $30,000 to fund professional contract planning services at the assistant planner level through February of 2025, which is 4 months, and authorize the city manager to execute amendment number 2.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Can we have a roll call vote on this, please?
Councilmember Councilmember McGowan,
Yes.
Councilmember Kim,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lozey,
Aye.
Mayor Murdock.
All right, moving along. The last full item is item number 10. Appointment of an interim public works director. I believe the city attorney had some comments to make, and then I have some questions and comments. Did you want to do yours first? or-
Sure, so.
Okay.
Wait, so, can you switch the display there so usually track changes? It's simple right here. You can go to, review. I think, so simple markup, change it to show all changes. Next one.
Next one on. Click.
All markup.
Yep.
We'll scroll up so they can see the change. So there's a recommended change to both the resolution and the draft agreement. This is just to ensure compliance with CalPERS provisions related to this potential hiring.
So, sorry, was it the section that was just passed? Can
Yes.
you go browse down?
There's only
Down. It's in blue. Here we go.
So it's not marked up in the staff report online, correct?
these changes were just made this afternoon after confirmation.
Gotcha.
Down a little bit more.
This language would be acceptable.
Gotcha.
There, stop.
Section 4.
Good.
So it provides some flexibility for the city manager to make adjustments to section 2A of the agreement, which deals with the term. That allows for a term that exceeds what's authorized in this resolution.
This is a CalPERS?
This is a CalPERS.
Wow, never mind.
And then there's a similar change to the draft agreement. You can pick that up. That's the change right there.
It's not a big print.
It's a lot of pressure to do that on the
It's a lot
fly.
of pressure. Good job. Good job.
Yeah, so this is the draft agreement. The recommended action from the council is just to adopt the resolution in the final form of the section 2A. This is how it's being presented here tonight. It may be further adjusted by the city manager in a form that does not, that is consistent with the resolution. The resolution controls your authorization.
Okay. I have a few questions. The staff report lists an hourly pay rate. So are we paying on an hourly basis or on a salary basis?
Hourly.
So if the candidate works more than 40-hour week, then we're paying more than kind of what we would in a salary. Is there a reason why we're doing that? In the past, all of our interims were on a salary basis.
No, I was not aware of that. We were being very, I was being very aware of PERS regulations, and in order to get this candidate, we agreed upon an hourly rate. I don't know.
Director's exempt under California labor.
Yeah, it's a very fair point. I don't know the answer to it. I don't know if you know the answer to that right now.
Might be a requirement. This has been reviewed by Isabella, right? So.
Ad nauseam.
But it might be an option. And part of the reason I bring it up is just last meeting, we increased the upper end of the public works director pay scale. And this proposal is to bring someone in at that rate, which is on an annualized basis, 191,000, but if they actually can collect more than that, when they come to, meetings like tonight, our previous public works director made 169, Derek left for 175, and now we're bringing in this other person.
On an interim basis,
Right, but
at the high end, it was the only rate I could get him at. When I initially talked to him a month ago, I couldn't meet his rate.
Is there a chance that this now sets kind of the price for the public works director? And now that you're out to recruitment, everyone's gonna expect to make what the interim makes, which puts them at the top of the scale and needs.
Well, I think that's left to my discretion, right? So so in this case, this was the only way. I spoke to two other candidates who were not interested at what we could pay. And I initially spoke with Mr. Lanzafame. It was the same answer. When the rate went up, I called him up and we were able to make it work. We are going out to recruitment. It depends on the candidate, depends on the qualifications. I can't speak to that until I interview them. We bring people in at different levels of the pay scale that get that. That's why we have those pay scales. It gives me the authority to try to get the best people I can get here at a fair rate to the city.
I mean, addressing your concern, do you when you have an interim that you're paying an hourly, do you generally manage them to stay under 40 hours a week?
Yeah, he will be managed to stay.
Well, we don't want to be paying someone time and a half.
No, that won't happen.
Okay, right, that's
part
of it.
Short of a, public works emergency, I don't want to come back and eat those words, but no, we've talked, we've come up with this work schedule and we'll be very mindful. And he'll be very mindful of his hours because of.
Well, and you don't want to, you don't want to
Protection
the
of-
hours, right,
yeah.
sure.
Any other questions? Any public comment on this? Okay, so I'm gonna bring it back. So I have two concerns about this, and I hear what you're saying. You talked to three people, and this is kind of what you came up with. Besides the cost side of it, I've got some concerns or questions around the qualifications, right? So our city right now is facing water issues, storm drain issues, really in the public works area, engineering kind of issues. And, this candidate doesn't really have public works experience, and he's not an engineer. He was a community development and economic development person. And so we're paying, we just invested all this time in Derek to bring him up to speed on the water issues. And now that walked out the door. And now we're gonna take someone who's not an engineer that we need to be able to kind of go toe to toe with Geosyntec on the technology and stuff and kind of vet them, challenge them, banter with them. And so we're going to invest all this time bringing this person who's not an engineer up to speed and pay top dollar for it. I'm concerned that this isn't going to meet the city's needs from an engineering and public works standpoint. So that's my concern. And I don't know if there's an opportunity, close your ears, Steve. Council has expressed some frustration over the past 3-4 years with HR Green. And I don't know if there's an opportunity here to go to an HR Green competitor and see if they have someone we could test out in this position. I just feel like we need an engineer. I mean, we were so excited that Anastasia was an engineer. Our public works director was going to be an engineer. And it just seems critical, this position.
I definitely don't want to get into the debate, but I will tell you what's going on in the market right now. This is a very difficult position to hire. I'm hearing this from every city manager I've spoken to. When we did the recruitment, the flyer, one of the conversations we had is it required to be a city engineer? And we're not requiring it, it's desired.
Right.
So we
And I
haven't.
hope they would have public works experience.
Of course, and Mr. Lanzafame does. He's been, again, okay, I don't want to debate,
Okay.
but I'm very confident in this candidate. I worked with him at a neighboring city, the city of Calabasas, when he served this exact position. I sat on 2 interview panels with him. I got a chance to work with him. When he became available based on his career as a local government executive, I feel we're very lucky to have him. I think that Derek was great. I wish that he could have stayed longer. I think he brought he brought the position to the next level. It opened my eyes to what's possible. And I certainly hope that in this recruitment, we can find that person. But in the interim, given the number of firms I spoke to, competitors of HR Green, and individuals who are retired, this was with the exception of Derek, this is the only person we could get to take the job. And I feel fortunate that he said yes.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm just gonna clarify, because you guys both made a comment about referring to Derek and leaving. I just, for the public, I mean, he worked for one of our contractors and he left the contractor. He wasn't an employee here who quit.
Yes, he left HR Green to get a job working for a city.
For one of the
full-time
cities.
as-
Yeah, I just wanted to
He went back into industry.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, do I have a motion?
I'll move that we approve resolution number R2452 as amended, appointing Philip Fontaine as interim public works director.
I'll second that.
Okay, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember McGowan,
Yes.
Councilmember Kim,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mosey,
Yes.
Mayor Murdock.
All right, we're through the consent agenda.
I also got confirmation that hourly rate is required as an option.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right, number 11, Malaga Cove water intrusion update. I think that's you, Steve.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Just a quick update. So back on October 8th, the city council adopted a proclamation determining that an emergency exists and to allow for expedited repairs for the sinkhole and subsurface voids along Malaga Lane. On October 11th, the work commenced, having Harding Harper out here doing the work to basically excavate and find the voids, as well as then providing the slurry mix to put back in there. All that work was completed on October 18th. We utilized the services of both Harding Harper and Geosentech for observation. We haven't received all the invoices yet from the contractors. However, we believe that we will be under budget based on what was originally presented, and that is in the staff report as well. Next steps, beyond the sinkhole, we are still, based on the staff report, we're still meeting with the residents. We're still meeting with the working group, and we're going to go through that. We're inviting Geosentech to one of the upcoming meetings that we do have Geosentech under contract to provide some technical support. With that, I'm here for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions from council?
City manager, can you update us briefly on your collaboration with the working group and any of the background on that?
Yeah, thank you. We've held 2 meetings with the working group, and we focus our efforts in a few directions. The first is, and as I've said before, we're looking at it sort of in levels of urgency and phases. The sinkholes obviously brought that to the forefront, so we remediated that and taken care of that. We're working with the group on concepts related to the Malaga Manor, the water, Sandbag Lane. Yes, we all know that. And finding a way to, it would be a private public works project that would capture the water as it comes out of the building and then create connection to the storm drain and take the water off the street. That's one area that's being worked on. And the city is sort of providing technical support and assistance to the residents of that building in order to help them go through the process to get that done. We've also, as it relates to Malaga Lane, where we just fixed the sinkholes, we're gonna take another run at running a camera through there and see if we can really get an idea of that French drain. One of the problems with that French drain is when it was constructed, there was just one access point. There isn't an access point in the building, so you can't find out where your problem is.
Right.
But we're gonna put a camera in there. Maybe the technology is a little bit better. We've heard things about hydrojet. See what we can get done. That's a relatively inexpensive solution. Short of that, we're starting now getting the big dollar figures to try and figure out what to do there. All while Geosyntec was working this week, today, to finalize their study, which would then bring back to the council, and assume the council would then provide direction to staff to seek design engineering, which will tell us the cost. We can then go try to figure out a way to, fund it. I did set up a meeting with Supervisor Hahn's office. This is the second time they've come out. And refocus sort of what we're looking at with them, just to start laying the groundwork for, hey, we're coming back. And they even invited their Department of Public Works to come out. Maybe they have somebody with an idea or something. So those are sort of the concepts we're working on. It's given us, it's been a good idea for several reasons. Number one, it forces Steve and I to know that this meeting's coming. We gotta get this meeting. And it also forces the conversation. And then we're collaborating, we're coming with ideas and we're kicking them around. Trevor's been a part of one of the meetings, and we're trying to find a solution for this.
Solutions plural, maybe.
There might be midterm solutions before the long-term solution.
You talk about running the camera, and the staff report says that you contacted a contractor and declined to give a quote.
They did.
What's going on with that?
He really, in the end, he didn't have the right license to work with the city.
Oh, okay. So it's not like he.
I had to really think about that, because
Mission.
I was gonna make a joke, but I'm not going to tonight. So then there's another guy that's gonna come out.
Okay, great. And then can you refresh my memory on what the dewatering permit is for?
Okay, so that's sort of the medium-term idea. That's the concept of trying to lower that water table. But by lowering that water table, what do we do with the water? We know that water has contamination in it. And so then we have to figure out, do we have to treat the water before we put it into the creek or into the ocean? We have to do what's called a notice of intent with the water board to see if we can get the correct permit. I misspoke to the public group, if anybody's here. We have not turned that in, I apologize, but slap Steve upside the head, and we are gonna turn that in. It's about 45 day turnaround.
Like that on camera?
What's it? Yeah. With a little Three Stooges. It's about a 45 day turnaround. Dollars to Donuts are gonna have a lot of questions, so I said, let's get it in the queue.
Is this using existing pumps, or would this require new pumps?
Probably require new pumps. We could go spend time trying to figure out how to do this, or we could let the water board tell us if we can't do this. We thought we'd get that process going, and then from there, try to figure out how to do it. There's a lot of questions. Do the wells hold up? Do the pumps, how do we power the pumps? Where's the water go? So.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. We all received a communication earlier today from some of the interested parties in Malibu Cove. And how can we ensure that all people that are affected are being properly communicated with, and the perception is that they're being left out and not knowing what's going on. And I think that's a bad omen for the city. I think we need to I know you need a smaller working group, and I fully appreciate that, but I think there also needs to be a open communication with all interested parties. And some of the building owners, to my understanding, have really not responded, or their trusts, or there's a lot of layers of who's running the building or owning the properties. But I would encourage you, we've got to have a way to make sure everyone is feeling equally heard and balanced without having it run by a committee of 40 people.
Councilmember Gowan, I was supposed to David.
That's fine.
I know you can. And I hear what you're saying. I think to my own demise, I try to get back to every email I get from a resident. I will continue that. It got to be a little much on this. But I think you answered your own question. How do we? Well, this is the only standing item on our agenda. So this will be before you every 2 weeks. Any resident that's interested to hear, we'll put in updates of our meetings. There's, with the exception of a minor cost to run a camera, there's no decisions being made. These are conceptual ideas. These are thinking ideas. These are moving steps forward, and we're reporting those back to you. So I encourage anybody that's interested in this to tune in, attend, and again, to my own demise, reach out to me, and I will do my best to respond.
Well, I would encourage that because I think we don't want to have a go down the pike in 6 months from now, come up with some strategy that someone said, well, you didn't include me, or you think about X, Y, and Z, and I don't want to hear about those kinds of negative comments that come out of any resident.
Pretty soon, we're gonna get into big dollar figures. Yes. And I won't be making those decisions, you guys will, in the public eye.
Well, I understand it, but all I'm trying to do is make sure that the respected parties feel that they're being heard.
I wonder if there's the opportunity to just send a postcard to all the property owners, letting them know that at every council meeting, we are discussing this, and if they have interests or concerns, let them know to come here rather than, eating up all your one-on-one time. I'm just, I mean,
that's good.
you kind of have to put, we have a vehicle, people need to know about it, and then the onus is on them to participate.
Yeah, and I think it also emphasizes the fact that the steering committee there is an aid to help come up with some ideas, but that doesn't mean it's the fait accompli, that it's going to be the only answer that the council will have to make a decision on.
Is there any public comment on this? Mr. Rosenberg?
Good evening, everyone. The comment that I thought I'd make on this is as it relates to the overall general public and the community members, there has been a considerable amount, just so you guys know, there has been a considerable amount of effort to, I'm one of the members that is on the quote unquote, whatever, steering committee. And when a year ago, when we first started emailing and communicating with you guys in the lane and whatnot, the effort was brought down to bring this down, and there, I don't know how to completely rectify the issue of when you communicate in a smaller group and then try and disseminate some of the information, and that smaller group was organized around a coalition of volunteers from the larger group, that it never became a closed circuit kind of conversation. So I do know that there have been some commentary about property owners that were never brought in the loop. Well, I tried to reach every property owner over a year ago. Not everyone is contactable. Not everyone responded to the email. Not everyone wanted to be, present in the meetings and whatnot. So it's not 100% solvable. I will say that to flip the commentary to a little bit more of the positive, that the work that has been happening in recent weeks is really encouraging. And I'll state for the record that for the most part, the steering committee's goals is, in a sense, to look at incremental change so that Geosyntec and the big solutions can happen in conjunction with the small solutions that will become part of a set of systems that create some redundancy, so that when the planned major solution fails, or if there's something that is unseen, that then those redundant systems still prevent the roads from being super wet all the time, or the buildings from being wet all the time. And that includes some responsibility under private property owners and some responsibility looking at how the city can help, and that those are all mutually, they're all mutually beneficial. And so the idea of drying the roads out with catch basins to catch the water where we know it is a logical solution for where we know there is water right now. And then, again, the subdrain, if there's a economically reasonable solution that brings that back to life, it's not a substitute for maybe a bigger solution, but maybe it's a component of a bigger solution. And so nothing is trying to outdo each other, but rather layer less expensive technologies onto more expensive technologies and do the less expensive things first, measure their progress, and then sequentially spend more money and more time. So that by the time we get to that big solution, we kind of know what some of those small solutions have yielded. And that should inform the big solution.
Thank you, Scott. Anybody else want to speak on this matter? Okay, bring it back to council. Any other questions, direction, thanks? Condolences?
Condolences. What, did you already say this? I'm sorry if you did. When we expect Geosyntek to come back with their last phase here?
Well, the work that Geosyntek is doing right now, I'm estimating probably about a month before they have the report finished.
Okay.
And then that will basically be another arsenal that you can use in determining where we go from there. Because it's part of the.
I'm expecting them to say, okay, here's the situation, here's what we recommend, and we'd like to engineer a solution, which then gets us into, I don't know who came up with these words, but I'll repeat it even though it drives me crazy, a shovel-ready project that potentially could have grant funding.
Just thinking about the calendar coming up. So they've got to finish the measurements this week. And then is it a month after that you're expecting? Because I'm trying to figure out how council sees this before January 10, 11, 12, whatever January's first meeting is. Is there any way for them to expedite so council can see it sometime in December maybe? Just because everyone's been patient for the last year plus.
No, understood. I will ask and bring that information back to council with the resolution. when we're-
Yeah, if they know that, otherwise we don't get to see it until January. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's what the intent was. The last time the report came in pretty quick, but I will confirm with Geosyntek.
I appreciate that. They might just not know that we're kind of dark.
And when do you think that this other camera vendor might be able to look at the French drain?
Look at you, Scott.
What's that?
The other vendor,
Other vendor is working on some numbers and I'm hoping maybe a week.
Can you repeat that?
he had a quote, he's working on the numbers, we'll get the quote in a week. We're hoping to get the quote from the other vendor in a week.
Does that fall, well, we don't know what the quote is, but if it falls under your review, is that something you would go ahead and authorize
Yes,
without having another council meeting?
yes.
Thank you.
Okay. That is that. Mayor and council member reports and tentative future agenda items. I think the tentative future agenda items fell off the agenda. I thought there was an attachment that I saw.
There was an attachment.
It's there.
Is it?
I'm looking at it.
There was something.
I did an update on it today, I sent you guys an update.
Because I refreshed my Granicus and it disappeared. So. Okay, maybe it's on the city. Okay. Okay, so anyone got anything they need to report out? Or any? Thank you, Carrie, for adding to the tentative agenda. It's good to see those items. Anyone?
So do we want to go through the future agenda items and clean that up?
Sure.
Yes, sir.
But then I think we got an updated version to let
I can, let me just kind of walk through.
Sure.
Would that be helpful?
So are you're looking for us to say, keep it, get rid of it, do it yesterday? I What are you looking for?
There's no do it yesterday category, unfortunately.
I'm looking for a big pat on the back. No, I am looking for, if you have
Just
comments.
gave you one. What do you mean?
Well, you asked what I'm looking for. So, yeah, I mean, I took some time today to kind of think about, met with each staff member and kind of got some ideas of what we're coming to. Some items on here, you'll see that we really have never had on a future agenda item. So, as we start to staff up, we're able to do these types of things, which was great. As we all know, we have the joint city council HOA meeting, planning commission meeting. I just somehow went back to my old city. And then we plan, in talking with Steve, to have the discussion about City Hall and parking garage next on the 12th, bringing back the storm drain master plan that we talked about, and the PVGC concession agreement. There's a meeting coming up, and we are working. This is not a promise. This is we're trying to get. We've identified all of the areas that were damaged of the storm last year. We're now trying to put numbers to it just to give the council some information we're looking at. We might even prioritize something, but we want to be able to just sort of talk you through it. So that's what we have in store for November 12th. Who knows what can come out.
Can I suggest an additional?
Yes.
The foundation would like to have a brief session at 12 to present the project that they're working with the police department on with these license plate readers and have a presentation to the city council.
Great. Sounds good to me. And we will be swearing in at least one police officer.
Hopefully two.
Hopefully two. I don't want to put pressure on them.
At November 12th?
On November 12th. And we'll be swearing in a captain, hopefully in December.
Correct.
Some of the new items.
Sorry, did somebody say you were then eliminating all future overtime expenses out of the budget?
What?
That was comedy.
I said what?
Don't quit your day job.
A couple things that are new on here that we've not seen before. We need to update our ADU ordinance, and working with the city attorney's office, we've been strategizing a plan with the goal to get that done before January 1st. This probably will not happen before January 1st, but the objective design standards, what we'll be talking about next week, the rezone, CEQA, zoning map will all start the public hearing process. To get that all tied up into a bow, to provide those protections and put our housing element to bed.
Just to manage resident expectations, that's probably January that you're going to be doing that, or do you think it'll be sooner? So anticipating January, just so people don't look at November, December.
Yes, that will not be, yeah.
Okay.
We're all aware we're doing the finance department study. We're hoping to get that to you in November with a report and sort of the findings and some recommendations. Two items that have kind of come up over the last couple of weeks that we, one per council was actually both per council, paid parking proposals. We just need to refresh those and we want to bring those back to you before.
Say that 5 times fast.
I can say it faster, before.
Paid parking proposals?
I know, it's not easy. Class and comp study proposals, to develop the RFP, for lack of a better word, on that, what was the scope of work. And then a big one that we need to get involved in is the HR contract extension. So quite a bit coming. Leventon and noise study, we hope to have that in 4 weeks, less than 4 weeks. Oh, she's shaking her head.
2 weeks.
I'm hoping, it's between 4 and 6 weeks. I'm trying to get exactly what I will receive in the report.
So yes, and then lastly, Steve and I talked about it today. He has assigned the tree inventory to a staff member to figure out what's going on and why we can't get this thing moving forward to the city council. Yes, David.
One that I would like to see get included on that list is a continuation of the storm sewer video camera and list of emergency projects that was discussed at the last council meeting.
That's on the.
Those are comments.
For the 12th, immediate storm repair.
It's for November 12th.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't see it. Or understand it.
So, good questions?
Looks good.
Okay,
About the investment.
it's on there. All right. I need the police department to tell me what they're bringing for fun. He's got a few more. He wasn't ready to commit.
Okay, well, with that, I am going to adjourn the meeting at 8:43 PM.
I would just enjoy it after that. God bless him.
Surprised it's only one.
Coughing over here.
Too much. I was, used to the last. Better part of the year.
All right.
We have two little.